In our previous video, you got a brief overview of what e-commerce is, what is the ONDC network, how the open network model functions, how the ONDC network is different from existing e-commerce platforms, the communication protocol for various entities on the ONDC network, and finally, the various stages involved in conducting business on this network. The initial step in your journey to becoming a seller network participant on the ONDC network is seller onboarding planning. And that is the topic of this video. The seller onboarding journey is as follows. Number 1, you decide which category of sellers to onboard. 2, you plan the team and resources required for onboarding sellers. 3, you convince sellers to sell through the ONDC network. 4th, agreeing on commercial terms. 5, processing seller registration. And 6, cataloging. As we mentioned, it begins with the seller network participant deciding what kind of sellers he would want to onboard and the categories he would want to operate in. The categories or domains the seller network participant decides to operate in would depend on several factors, such as past experience of a domain or category. This could be offline or online. While selecting a category, it is advantageous for a seller network participant to prefer a category where the seller or the seller network participant's team has prior experience in operations. This will give you, the seller network participant, a head start in terms of having an existing seller base, understanding of operational rules of the category, and creating a relevant catalog for sellers with information which buyers usually look for in this category. Understanding of category-specific margins versus cost of operations. Margins and average order value varies across categories. Depending on what the cost of operations is for a seller network participant in a particular city or region and category, you, the seller network participant, must then work backwards from the margins and average order value in different categories to shortlist those categories, which will cover the cost of operations. Regional supply concentration of a particular category. What do we mean by this? Well, the seller network participant may be operating in a region with a high concentration of supply for a particular category, but the demand may be across India. Some of you may want to leverage this locational advantage to onboard sellers in such a category. The local demand or spending in the category in case of hyperlocal. If you decide to work on a hyperlocal model, then you must select categories where there is sufficient demand in the regions where the sellers are serviceable. Also, you should plan seller onboarding in regions where there is sufficient demand from nearby areas. Hyperlocal versus all India fulfillment. For categories which need hyperlocal logistics, such as food and beverage and groceries, seller network participants can choose to onboard sellers from areas where hyperlocal deliveries are available through the ONDC network. For all India delivery categories, seller network participants can onboard sellers in any town and city. Of course, with the multi-domain nature of this open network, seller network participants can choose to onboard sellers from across categories and domains. Seller network participants can choose from these categories and domains currently live on the open network. In the retail domain, we have the following categories: food and beverage, grocery, home and decor, electronics and appliances, fashion, beauty and personal care, health and wellness, agriculture. Besides this, ONDC network has also added other growing domains: mobility, financial services, and B2B. The categories that are live in the financial services domain are insurance, credit, gift cards, and investments. We will add more domains and categories for the seller network participants to choose from as the ONDC network evolves. The seller onboarding planning process is crucial for your success on the ONDC network. Both the quantity and quality of sellers a seller network participant chooses to onboard with regards to the category they want to cater to will decide the gross revenue they generate. Quality sellers ensure that the orders received get fulfilled. More good quality sellers means more transactions equals more revenue. Now let's go to the steps involved in seller onboarding process. Starting with the crucial first step, planning the seller onboarding process. Initiating a well-defined planning process is essential to streamline seller integration, minimizing the expenditure of time, effort, and cost. So, what exactly does this entail, and how do we approach it? Let's explore this further. Understanding the journey of a seller network participant when onboarding sellers is crucial for efficiency and effectiveness. To comprehend this process more intuitively, we liken it to the mechanism of a funnel. This funnel demonstrates how you, the seller network participant, might engage with 100 sellers at the initial stage, but by the end of the onboarding process, only 10 might be operational and ready to receive orders. Consequently, if the objective is to have 20 live sellers, you would need to approach 200 sellers. This method requires strategic planning from the outset, aiming to maximize active sellers by reaching out to as many potential sellers as possible. Given the vast number of sellers you need to approach at the funnel start, you, the seller network participant, needs to strategically allocate resources. This ensures that seller engagement and onboarding, whether conducted via calls or in-person meetings, are both effective and efficient. The seller onboarding process involves several stages, including reaching out to sellers, shortlisting those who are interested, processing their registration, sharing catalog and inventory information, enabling sellers to go live on the platform, and preparing them to receive orders. The next step involves establishing connections with prospective sellers and convincing them to sell through the ONDC network. This forms the widest segment of the funnel. Following the initial outreach, you must identify which sellers are truly interested in the prospect of selling online. This requires clearly explaining the advantages of the ONDC network to potential sellers and establishing transparent expectations. Once interest is confirmed, the onboarding process involves gathering necessary documentation and information. This includes KYC details, GST information, a cancelled check, and reaching a mutual agreement on engagement and payment terms. Are we done? Almost. There's one last step before your seller is made live on the ONDC network to start receiving and fulfilling orders. Sellers need to share catalog and inventory information. A seller must share complete details of the products they wish to sell through the seller network participant. Details include brand name, selling price, MRP, product name, etc. This is required to create a digital catalog which has details about the product. In this session, we covered the comprehensive steps of seller onboarding planning, which start with planning resources for seller onboarding, followed by reaching out to sellers, persuading them to sell through the ONDC network, agreeing on commercial terms, processing the seller's registration, and finally cataloging all product information. In the next video, you will learn about the next step in the seller onboarding planning process, which is how to convince your shortlisted sellers to join the ONDC network. You can learn about that in the next video.